Congratulations, I'm Intox along with
BDot, baby.
Hey, let's get it, bro.
Episode 154. As you can see, I'm by myself. I don't think BDot likes me anymore. No, I'm just kidding. You know how life is. Things go on and things have to happen. And, you know, it is what it is. And so every now and again, you get the opportunity to get Intox all by yourselves. So let's see what happens on episode 154. Where do we go this time? Where do we go today? I think a big thing that we haven't talked about in a while, but something that I wanted to get into with everybody is a few episodes back. I don't even remember. It could have been 10, 20. I mean, I've been saying it for a while, but a few episodes back, I did say, you got to remember that digital assets are the future, regardless of what you think. You know, regardless of what you know, if you think it's evil or you think it's this or you think it's that, right? You think that, you know, it's going to be, think it's all a scam. And some of it probably is, you know. But the thing is you got to do your research. And the research is telling us that, yes, you can look at the numbers and, you know, Bitcoin is at the top. But the thing is you got to remember something like Bitcoin hitting 100 grand per coin makes it very unreachable for a lot of normal people. And so for a lot of people that train or that boat has sailed, as they will say, right? So for a lot of people, it's just not worth getting into. So unless you have something in there already, there's no point in you trying to deal with anything. It's just not going to work. So the idea here is that, hold on, my settings are feeling a little funky. Let's see what we can find here. Check 1 2, check 1 2. It sounds like it keeps cutting me out. Let's see what we can try real quick. I think the noise gate might be too high. Let's bring that down a little bit. Check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2. That sounds a little bit better. Okay, that's not cutting me as easy. All right. I know we were playing with the settings before and might have changed something we shouldn't have. But we'll get right back to it. So digital assets. So XRP, XLM, XDC, HBAR, there's a few of them, right, that you got to do some research on. And you'll realize that these are the ones that are starting to integrate themselves into the banks. Have y'all heard of something called ISO 2002, I think it's called? Something like that. I'll have to look that up. I'll look it up, put the right stuff on the screen. But that just came into compliance on November 22nd, 2025. That just happened a few days ago. Basically this week, right? Is the world. They had this thing happen, you know, locally and then, you know, regionally. And now in the world, everybody should be ISO 2000 compliant. That's the idea. And what that does is that the ISO is the international standards of something. I can't remember. See, like I said, I'll throw it on the screen. I can't think of the whole thing at this moment. But what that tells the digital asset space is it gives it the rules and it gives it the ideas of how to move forward and who you're going to, you know, and how things are supposed to react over the protocols and different things like that, right? That kind of governs it worldwide. And so all of that went into effect, meaning that any banks and anything that dealing with finance at this moment must be ISO 2000 compliant. And so certain assets, the ones I just talked about, you know, XRP, XLM, those ones are already compatible and inside the system. They've already been running along the system. That's what we've been saying everything for the past, you know, few years, is that this system has been running parallel because they've been trying to get ready for this moment where they're going to switch everything over and we're going to go from Federal Reserve back to the U.S. Treasury because it's already happened. It's just that we haven't been publicly told yet how it's all working, but it's all been running behind the scenes. That's things we've always talked about here on Awkward Intelligence is a lot of things happening behind the scenes that we don't even understand yet. And we're just trying to decipher and decode things based on the ideas and things that people are saying and doing on the news and in politics and different things like that. So I say all that to say, when you look at these digital assets, so like a digital asset like Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're not ISO 2000 compliant. They're not in that situation right now. Now, that doesn't mean that those assets are just going to crumble and fall away and be forgotten about. They still have some use, and people are still using them as stores of value and different things like that. But the idea of XRP, XLM, and all these different things, these other ones that you should be looking into, and that's why I said a few episodes back, I said, make sure y'all are at least doing the research. That way, you may not get involved right away, but at least you understand how these things are starting to work and how they're coming together. And that's what, the knowledge is what you're trying to gain right now. If you're that worried about it, just gain the knowledge, because that's what I did back in like 2016, 2017, 2018. I was gaining the knowledge, but I wasn't doing anything yet. And I really didn't get into the digital space until about end of 2019, beginning of 2020, when everything went down, when the pandemic hit, that's when I started really seeing things and started seeing the assets, how they were shifting and moving, and all that stuff was developing. And so that's what got me to stay in that space. And I was able to take, at the time I had a small stock portfolio, right? Had a few grand in there, and was trying to move money around and trying to figure things out and, follow the path that others before me have showed, that if you put money in Amazon, if you put money in Tesla, if you put money in all these big companies, Microsoft, Disney, if you have money in all these places, that money will just continually grow, because those companies were always growing and trying to build. And so there was some sure shot companies. And so, I was trying to put my money in those kind of things. And then when I saw this digital space moving, that's when I decided I need to shift. And so what I did around 2021 is I shifted all my money out of the stock market that I was playing with over there, and I moved it all into digital assets. And I got, and that's why I have XRP, XLM, and HBAR, and Cardano, and some different ones now that I've had that I got, because I realized that the research that I was doing was pointing me and saying, these are the ones that are going to be the ones that move forward into this next ISO 2000 shift, as the finances shift from the Federal Reserve back to the Treasury. And this is happening worldwide. It's not just America. It's happening in all these other countries. That's why the whole BRICS idea, you have remember we've talked about the BRICS before, and look that up if you need to. But the BRICS situation is where they're changing the money idea, right? Well, a lot of that is what we've been talking about. It's the Nasara Jassara type stuff that's happening throughout the world in all these different countries, and all these dictators have been dictators. Was that a Freudian slip? But all these leaders from these countries are lining up with each other and trying to figure out how to keep their assets moving in their countries, and so that their GDPs will stay flowing and rising, and so that their people will be good. It's the same shift that everybody else is having. That's why we're waiting for the Iraqi dinar to flip. We're waiting for the Vietnamese dong to flip. We're waiting for the ZIMs, the Zimbabwe bonds to flip. We're waiting for all that to happen, because when those situations flip and those currencies get reevaluated, that's what's going to start kicking off all of this humanitarian money that's going to start popping up. Because our passions and ideas here and our missions are greater than what we're doing now. Right now, we've been calling the whistle. We've been blowing the whistle, trying to tell everybody what's happening. Look over here. Look at this. Check this out. See what they're doing. And now, more and more and more in the news and in the news of the world, you can see that disclosure is happening. Things are starting to come out. They're starting to say leaks are happening. This leak happened, or this leak happened, or this audio got leaked, or this video got leaked. Why do you think that stuff's getting leaked? It's called disclosure. It's what we've been talking about. They have to disclose all the bullshit they've been doing. They have to disclose it. It's got to come out. There's nothing they can do about it now. It's inevitable. All they can do now is run and hide. That's what they're trying to do. They think they can run, but they definitely can't hide. The game is up. The jig is up. It's over. That's what they say. Nothing can stop what's coming. The wave is here. And so in the last episodes, we were talking about solutions. Yes, we've been blowing the whistle. Yes, we've been pointing at ideas and pointing at fingers and saying, look at here, look at there, right? But the thing is we can't continue to just be stuck on what the problems are. We've got to look to the solutions and start to figure out how we're going to take these ideas and move forward, and how we're going to build ourselves better, and how we're going to be better people with money. We're not going to be hoarding it. We're not going to be taking it away from other people. We're not going to be depriving people of different things. The wealth transfer is all about transferring the wealth from the evil people back to the good people so that we can then distribute it amongst each other in so many creative ways. We're going to build so many businesses. We're going to build health centers. We're going to build healing centers. We're going to build so many different things. And not everybody's mission is all about that kind of thing. Some people are going to be rescuing animals. Some people are going to be cleaning up rivers. Some people are going to be, doing different things. Some people are going to just be doing daycares and different things like that, because people are going to have to try and work at the same time too. But we're going to be doing great work. We're going to be working together. You're not going to be away from your family, but you're going to have somebody. If you're out and about doing the things that you're trying to do to create a better world, somebody may have to watch the children. That's the whole community idea. You'll have family members with you and different people with you that can travel with you, that can take care of your children while you're out working the deals and doing the things you need to do to get stuff straightened out. So it's going to be it's a different idea in a different world that we're heading into, and we've been preparing for it, and that's why I said digital assets is something you got to look into and just start to see. So see, like right now, think about it. There's people who got in on XRP when that thing was cents on the dollar, right? Now, and then it moved up to like 40 cents and it stayed there for a long time, a couple years or whatever. And then now it's close to like $2 a coin or whatever. And so some people who got in early have already made money. They're already making money. They're already taking dividends and things like that. And then in just the last 2 weeks, everything has dipped down a lot, and it's still kind of on a slide, and that's okay. What that's showing is it's trying to get more people involved. As more people get involved, it rises it back up, because it's never gonna fall to zero. That's the idea. Everybody thinks, it can always fall to zero. It's a digital, but the thing is, you got to remember, digital assets are different than crypto. Digital assets are actually backed by commodities, which means that you are backed by oil, you're backed by diamonds, you're backed by real currencies, not these fake currencies that we call dollars that are in our pockets, this fake fiat currency, right, that is backed by nothing. Because we've already talked about this. We know that we had different times, 1913, 1933, 1971. When you look up those dates and you look up the ideas, you'll realize that those different times, that's when they started taking away our financial moves from us. Because in 1913 is when they created the Federal Reserve. In 1933, we went bankrupt, and they changed the money system over. In 1971, we got off the gold standard, with Jimmy Carter and all that stuff like that. So you have to look at the way that they systematically over these years have broke our system down, and then built it with such an inflation idea that the more money they print, the less our money's worth. And if they're able to just print whatever they want, then your money becomes so. Right now, based on when the dollar first started, our buying power is like 96% less than what it was when it first showed up. When they first put the dollars out, it had buying power. A dollar was worth a lot at the time. We could get a lot for a dollar. Now it's worth 95% less, basically, over all these years. How long do you think that inflation system can work? We already knew that years ago, that inflation was inevitable. You can never let two things just disappear from each other. It's never going to work. The bubble's going to burst at some point. So you have to think about stuff like that. Hey, let's get it, bro. I'm just ranting away, ain't I? I'm getting crazy over here. I'm not even like having a show. I'm just ranting. It's crazy. I don't know. I just felt very compelled to put that message out there. I'm just saying, look at the digital assets. I'm not saying that you have to be involved. I'm not saying put your money in. I'm not saying, you have to. I'm just saying look into it, because it's happening. It's happening around you. And the idea is that you're going to watch people start to make money, and then you're going to feel like, oh, it's too late, but it's never going to be too late. It's just that you're later than others, And so you got to remember, if it's for you, it's for you. If something's compelling you to go find out this information, it'll happen. If it doesn't, then you won't. You just won't be a part of that situation. Maybe you have other things that are for you. You have other ideas that are going to fall in place for you. But if you're here, you're getting this message, then by all means. So, yeah, you never know. You never know where the message is going to come from. You never know. You could just, somebody random could be stumbling on this video right now and not have no clue who I am, but they may have been talking to somebody about this, and then all of a sudden this video pops up and they click on this, and next thing you know, we're talking about it. And it's just a synchronicity for somebody. Somebody might just need this message at that moment, and that's what we're putting this together for. Also, have you noticed the room? I told y'all every week at this point, you're going to start seeing new things, new upgrades, new moments, So we're putting more things together. We're trying to get this place moving. It's exciting, like we said, to have a room where we can put our ideas together and be able to set it up in a way to make it functional and, for a lot of different things and make it versatile. It's a cool experience. We're able to do this. And then last week I showed y'all, forgot the music was turned up. That was loud. Last week I showed y'all pictures of the studio and everything that we've been building. I showed you some pictures of that. So if you watched last week's episode, you were able to see all that. Threw a few pictures up there for you, and that'll evolve a little bit more over time as well, because it's the PPE compound. This is an expanding place, and things are happening here really quick, and we're trying to build a lot. We're able to build a lot real quick, and that's the cool part. And we have a lot of people that are involved, and it's going to start jumping here in a minute, and it's going to be exciting. I'm ready for the ride. Yeah, it's exciting. So holidays are here. Thanksgiving, well, as of the recording of this, Thanksgiving's tomorrow. But when you see this, it's already happened. So I'm a time traveler. I thought y'all knew this already. I'm a time traveler. We're all time travelers. We're all multi-dimensional time travelers. That's what we are. We're quantum leapers. Quantum leapers. So, yeah, so the other part, too, with that is like Thanksgiving, right? Here we are. We made it. What is it? What does everybody always talk about? What are the basic traditions of Thanksgiving? Everybody, has their own ideas, right? But the biggest idea is getting together with people, if it's friends or if it's family or if it's both or whatever. And getting together with people and having good meals and sharing good stories and seeing what everybody's been up to and catching up with those that you've lost contact with and all those different things, right? That's what the holidays are really about. That's what it's turned into. But what do we know where stuff like Thanksgiving even originated from? Do we know that? Do we really pay attention to it? We listened to the stories when we grew up. We did who did the thing where you had to draw like around your hand, and you made a turkey out of your hand on the paper and stuff with elbow noodles and stuff. Y'all remember that shit? Hey, let's get it, bro. Childhood, right? Elementary stuff. But yeah, so they told us that Thanksgiving was a celebration and a feast between friends, between the Europeans and the Native Americans that were here, right? And they tell you that those people were here. And then all of a sudden they say, go back to your country. And you're like, who are you talking to? What are we saying? Who's saying what? And it's so confusing because if you try to fight back against that, all of a sudden you look like the asshole. And you're like, wait a minute, go back to my country. What are we talking about here? Right? So I think for me, what I've told somebody before is I feel like the smoking gun of that scenario is if they told us that the Europeans arrived here and the Native Americans showed them the way and gave them a feast and all these things, right? Where are those people that were here already? Who are those people? They're going to try and tell you they're the people that are in the reservations right now. They're in the reservations. They're, they've got their space. We gave them their stuff, or whatever. That's what they'll tell us. And those are the ones we know about. Right? Those are the ones they try to tell us about. They're the ones that they sell to us. That's the seller. These people are doing their thing. They're okay. They've got their little bit of land. But they don't tell us who those people really were. But we're starting to learn. We're starting to learn, aren't we? You know, we're starting to learn how much history is really, really manipulated, and how, you know, as a young child in elementary, you don't know any better to ask the real questions. You don't even start to really get the real questions until you're probably a teenager, if not later sometimes. Some people don't really start going, wait a minute, that doesn't match up all of a sudden or whatever. And so, you know, because last week I told that story about being in Texas and learning about the Alamo, and then wondering why I was supposed to be rooting for the Americans when I'm Mexican myself, you know. And I thought that was just a weird scenario as a child, that I had to watch something and try to figure that out myself of, wait a minute, if we're fighting the Mexicans, I don't get this. This doesn't make sense to me, you know. But I didn't know how to ask the correct questions, but I definitely did speak out about it. I did ask about it. Nobody had a real answer at the time, you know. Nobody was really thinking about it. It was just history. It was like, yeah, it's Texas history. But nobody's really asking those questions, you know. Wait a minute. You know, they were fighting Santa Anna and all the Mexicans. What the hell's going on here? So yeah, go check out last week's. You'll get a bigger, longer story about that, you know, and get the full details of that idea of being in elementary and figuring that out, you know. But yeah, so you start, you know, now that I'm at the age I'm at now, you know, I guess mid-40s? It'd be mid-40s at this point. I've just, over these last few years, I've started questioning a lot of things, especially my history and just the things that were taught to me at a young age. You know, what were they really teaching us? What were they really saying to us? Why were they talking about the things they were talking about? Why were they trying, you know, and that's, and, you know, like I said last week, it goes for everybody. We're all from different states. So we all didn't learn the same history. We learned the same U.S. history, most likely, or a lot of the same U.S. history. We learned a lot of the same, you know, global history. But state-wise, if you lived in different states than other people, which most of us, you know, obviously did, you're going to get different information. Because I don't know very much about Kentucky because I'm not from there. But somebody who's from there probably has a lot more information. But my elementary schooling was in Texas, so I knew a lot more about Texas history overall, that was different than someone else from a different state, you know? And so we're all unique in that way because we're all from those different states. And so it's like that information is the information that I think has been kind of, it's like that's part of the puzzle. You can take those, you got 50 states where you could get information from 50 different people, and you're going to get all this new information that you never even understood because you weren't from that state and you didn't get that. You didn't get that knowledge. So I think that's an interesting way to look at it, you know. Hey, let's get it, bro. But I don't know where I was going with that. I might have finished that thought. That thought might have been finished already. But yeah, it's just that now more and more when you look at everything, you can really see where the lies are and what the bullshit is. You know, it's like, you're like, wait a minute. You're like, this does not make sense at all. This doesn't make, you know, now that you really think about it, not that, you know, even it may not made sense in the beginning, but you just didn't have the right questions or the right ideas. You weren't in that mindset yet. You were just like, all right, I learned the test and I'm out. I got it. You know, you're not really thinking about it. You don't have that moment at the time. You're not really, no one's sitting there debating these things. They're just telling you, this is what it is. This is the story. This is the books. Who wrote the books? Go look into that, right? You know, it's like the books we were learning in school. Who wrote those books? Where did those books come from? Who had the contract to create those books? And a lot of times when you look at them, they go back to families that are connected to other families that are connected to running all this weird shit. And you're like, how do all these people just end up connected in so many ways? It's because they're all helping each other the way that we should be helping each other. They're all giving each other their businesses and moving them and putting people in places and saying, here, you run this, and here, you take care of this, and this is your part. And they all have different names because they're all married into different families. So it looks like different people, but it's really all the same people. That's the wild part. That's what we're starting to realize, is it's the same people tied into all things. And you're like, you're like sitting there going, oh, I didn't, it's like, I didn't realize that this person is actually, this name. Or this person comes from this family, but he took his mother's maiden name instead for whatever reason, maybe to hide. Who knows? Who knows what it was really all about? All we know is that it's all tied together. And the more and more that comes out in the information that leaks out, the more and more we realize how much is really tied in together. And how much that this government that they call the U.S. government is just stealing from us and taking from us and using us and abusing us because they know who the real people were here long before we had any of this other bullshit. Yeah. That's where it is you can't, it's just undeniable now. You can't deny it anymore. You can't go, it's like you can't even, it's out there. History's not what we've been told. And then where are all those pictures? Where are all those people? Where are all those accounts? Where's all the information telling us what things were before 1491? 1491 and back. Where were all that information? Somehow we have all their information, but they've burned down Alexandria. They burned down this. They burned down that. They burned down Chicago. They burned down, you see what I'm saying? You burned down San Francisco in the 1800s. Look at all these things they did to hide their shit. They burned down Philadelphia. Why do you think the White House left Philadelphia and went to D.C.? Because they were trying to lose the records. They've rewritten history. We're living their history. That's why it's called, that's why it's called his story, right? His story. So, that's why they always play on that word, his story. So it's not our story. Our story didn't start, in slavery over here and in, all these different things that they try to portray. That's not our history. That's just something that happened because we were at war. We were at war. They wanted us out of the way. They were called settlers, or at least we were calling them settlers. That's not what they called themselves, but that's what they were called. They were called settlers. They walked over here and they decided that they wanted this land for whatever reason, and they've been fighting us ever since, and we've been trying to fight back. But the thing is they've caught us in their legalese, like we've talked about before. Once they got us caught up in their legalese, all we're doing is turning in paperwork, turn in this, turn in that, go to court for this, file this, it's an affidavit, here's an indictment. We're so caught up in their fucking paperwork, we've never had a chance to figure out how to get out. But there's people who are starting to figure this stuff out. They're the ones that have shined the light on a lot of things for us and helped us along the way. One of them is somebody I always talk about named Rod Hayes. He looked at the information and he realized what they were doing and realized that the legalese they were using was what was trapping us. And so you got to remember, okay, like here's something to think about, right? If the real true seat of the mother, right? If you ever heard that idea, because in the Vatican they have a seat where the Pope sits, and they call that like the main seat, or so, I don't know exactly what they call that. I'm not into it that much. But anyways, it's supposed to be like a sacerdotal seat, and that's where like they sit, right? But if you've ever noticed, there's another seat that's like above them, and it's up here, and they call that like the holy seat or some shit, right? But really what that is that's the mother's seat. That's where the great mother is supposed to sit. That's why only a woman can sit there. And that's why it has to be held above them, because it's above them and they can't sit there. Now, when a new pope is selected, they do a ball check. They make sure it's a male. Because they realize that if a female ever did get in there and sit down on that seat, the game would automatically be over. Because the whole idea is to keep the woman out of the seat so that she can't reclaim her matriarch idea to the land. If you don't have matriarch to the land, then we're in a patriarch. It's been overtaken. We're under rule. You know, that's what's happened. And we're trying to get back to that matriarch society, because the matriarch society is a better flowing society. It's a society that has accountability, you know, where you have women who are putting the rules together and you have men enforcing those rules. That's how it's really supposed to work. It's not supposed to be this democracy, 51%, I vote the rule in. What is this shit? That's not the real world. That's not how it works. How does 51% of the population get to dictate what the rest of us get to do? That's not how this works. That's why democracy doesn't work. That's why socialism doesn't work. That's why communism doesn't work. Because in all of those, somebody tries to take control of others. That's the problem. We got to stop trying to take control of everybody and start understanding what control really is, and having control of populations and ideas and you know, controls of your cities and controls of your states, and having, you know, living like decent people, and quit trying to do all this weird shit. You know, it's like we're always caught up doing weird shit. Whenever we turn around, we're just like, what are they doing over there? You know? But that's because we've been in such a rut. They've held us in such low, you know, states and such low vibrations and things. They've done so many things to us that it's hard for us to step out in a lot of things. We don't understand our power. You know, it's like that. Everybody on the internet, I'm sure, if you're on the internet, you've seen that video where they put the fleas in a jar, and if you take the top off, or if you don't put a top on it and you put the fleas in the jar, eventually they'll just kind of hop out. They'll find their way out, right? But if you take them and you put a cap on that jar, they're going to hit that top, because they're going to be testing the ceiling, right? But eventually they'll realize they can only jump so far, and then they'll breed, and then you can take the top off of those babies, and those babies will never jump taller than that jar, no matter if it's open or not, because they already in their DNA know that they're already limited. That just shows you that when you take a population of humans and you limit their abilities and you limit their ideas and you tell them they're nothing and you degrade them and you push them down, eventually we're going to start to think that's who we are. And it's not. We're so much greater than this. But because we've been told we're not, we keep downing ourselves. And that's the whole point of all this, is to look yourself in the eye, have those conversations with yourself, start to understand you're bigger than this. You don't have to live by their bullshit laws and bullshit rules and all this stuff. But you got to start figuring out how to navigate your world. That's what we always talk about, navigate your world. Find ways out, figure things out, start to figure out your ways around stuff, try to figure out different things, try different things. Don't be scared to test new ideas and do it. But what do you think scientists are out here doing? They're testing new ideas. They're researching things. They're trying stuff. And then they just hit something that works, and then they get to put it in a paper and give it to y'all and make money on it. The same way you could do if you're out here trying different things, trying different businesses, working on different things, coming up with new ideas, working with your people, trying to build communities, do different things like that. Nobody can stop you. How are they going to stop all of us? They can't stop all of us.
Hey, let's get it, bro.
So yeah, that's you know, it's like we just got to have solutions. We can't sit here and keep woe is me. You know, it's only so long before we can go, what are we going to do? They did this to me. They did this. We can't do that. We got to have solutions. We got to have solutions. We got to say, okay, you want to do that? I'm going to do this. Okay, you want to do that? I'm going to do this. I'm going to start new things. We can't, you know. So yeah. So I wanted to do something today. There's a song we haven't played. I don't believe we've played it. But it's from, this is probably, this probably had to be like 03, 04 when we made this. This is an unreleased song. We never put this out. The song's called Paradise. And it's from the original PPE group. So it's from Prime, a.k.a. Mr. Prim, Nonstop, and myself. And we never released this, but you know, I think we've released it like on mixtapes and people have heard it, but it's just was never released fully and officially. And it had a singer on it and stuff, so we just never put everything together to get it out right. And it was, like I said, 04. What were we really doing? I just listened to the mix. It's a little wild. But check it out. Here we go. Paradise.
Sometimes mistakes we make in life are less important than the lessons that we learn from them. Cause you can burn from them, or you can turn from them. In the essence of blessings, we grow from them. Scorn, grown, and blown in the wind. I learned back when, then, that I could lose a friend over committing a sin that kept my cousin. Lost a life when he decided to marry a wife and make something beautifully nice. We all looking for a piece of paradise. Either player or gangster, we looking for something better than nothing. Ain't no future in front, just as in. On the past, on lasting. Soldiers overseas blasting. Kids with no choice but fasting. If I was a wizard, I'd be casting spells to let the innocence out of cells and change the scale where everybody wins, nobody fails, nobody loses. No more bruises, scrapes or pain. Change the game, sacrifice. Say it once, nah man, say it twice, and that'll be my motherfucking paradise.
It's been 24 long years, now that's some time. And I jumped out the womb in 1979. Ready for the world, but was it ready for me? Cause some things come cheap, but nothing comes for free. So I gotta make the money somehow, some way. So I'ma hustle like talk and say. And I'm steady getting older, my game is getting colder. And me priming non-stop is coming from the shoulders. Cause we trying to make it to that place we call paradise, where everybody just kick back and live their life with no haters, perpetrators, or duplicators. Just some max, ballers, and true players. So everything around me's in harmony, and the worries of the world never worry me. Cause everything I cherish always falls into place. But I don't want the whole pie, just give me a taste.
Pretending we living in the paradise.
Searching for paradise, but only finding temporary solutions. Steady seeking, but blinded by these earthly illusions. With the sake of gathering, greedily glitters and gold. Living a false peace, fearing the day the end up broke. For what minute of paradise, my people smoke or inject toxins and poisons. Addictions grow to get rid of the noises that reality makes. The wheels that it break. Whatever it takes to face it. The weak and the strong hustle up in this thug matrix, but can't wake up. Women, beautiful little girls, grow up applying tons of makeup just to make out. Then baby epidemics and diseases they break out. Lack of teaching or reaching, showing them that they royalty. Now the pimps in their paradise got teens tricking in loyalty, and it troubles me that we can't see through the closed doors. Politicians hiding behind us in doors. The war instead of peace and cooperation, ignoring nations united, plotting their operations. But when you got alcoholics who can't call it, looking for paradise in the bottom of every bottle, making every potion a little less hard to swallow. Now realizing the livers are being scarred and hollow, with the attempts to find hope, but only find newspapers to sleep on in the form of peace in these streets and roads. Mama's boy trying to find paradise in the dope that he sold. Soldiers of the block on with the guns to rob or sell rock, but end up shower in a cell block. On life from 5 to 9, life maybe 3 strikes. Scared to death to leave jail, 3 meals and gym in the roof. Cause out there living is strife. The only freedom is death, but afraid of the past sins, thinking to themselves that this is paradise.
Pretending we living in the paradise. Paradise. If we did, it would be nice. Pretending we living in the paradise. Paradise. If we did, it would be nice.
What up, Paradise? So now I just figured out why the mic was sounding a little funny. Well, it's because BDot's not here, and I didn't mute his mic until just now. So we were getting double mic'd for the first 30 minutes of the show. Beautiful. Doing great over here, folks. How are you guys? What's happening out there in the internets? What are you guys up to? We don't have the chat today. Mr. Prim didn't make it. No chat today. No TikTok. We'll have to get back to you next week. But yeah, that's another thing we want to talk about is we want to do more streaming and get more streaming and stuff going on. And actually start streaming the show every Wednesday on the AwkwardIntel TikTok. And I think I'll throw that on the screen again. I think it's that at AwkwardIntel or whatever on TikTok. So check us out. So we're going to start putting that together coming soon. Hopefully next week we'll get that together. We'll see where we're at in the next couple of weeks, though. We're still trying to do a lot of things with this transition and this move and stuff. We're still trying to get it shaking and grooving, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so here's the big thing is like one of the biggest things we're learning as we're starting to play around in the streaming game and gaming and streaming podcasts and different things. What we're starting to learn is like it's not as easy as it looks. It's like you see all these people doing all these things online, you're like, wow, that looks pretty easy. It just doesn't look like they're... And then you start trying to do it, and you're like, wait a minute, how come my audio doesn't sound right? Or how come this doesn't work? Or how did they get this to do this? You start realizing there's a lot more involved with, it's not so simple to just throw a podcast together, especially depending on how deep and crazy you want to get. And then you start to have some appreciation for the stuff that people are doing. You're like, wow, okay. Once you kind of got a template together, you started throwing stuff together, it becomes easier. But it's a lot, it's a lot going on. You got a lot happening. I mean, you got to have, you got to know where you're streaming to. You got to get streaming keys online, and you got to have OBS put together on a laptop, and you got to have different overlays put together so you can look cool. And what if you want alerts and different? I mean, there's so much involved. And then, some people have these things called stream decks, and the stream decks have sound pads, or they have hotkeys and scenes and different things. And you're like, you're like, wow, it takes some programming and some ideas, some late nights. Putting things together in order to create a really cool show for people, and being able to, it's like what another thing we're going to be bringing to you here is the show's always had one static camera, and every now and again, you might have had a different view here and there, right? Different things we've been trying to do, but we're going to get to a point where we're going to have at least 2 and possibly even 3 different shots coming soon. And those are things we're working on now. Now that we have a space that we can create in, we can do these type of things, a lot easier. And just trying to figure out, it's the hard part is trying to figure out how to make that happen. It's like you just got to do your research, and you got to, it's like I said, I'm sitting here watching YouTube videos on trying to figure out how to use OBS, and I'm watching YouTube videos trying to use, iRuin webcam and all these different things. And I'll probably bring you guys a video soon about some of the things I've learned so that people down the road might be able to go, oh, I see the problems you ran into. I ran into those same problems. And then maybe there's somewhere where we can, communicate. That's what, that's what I'll do. See, I'll stamp that right here. I'll put a small video together, and I'll put that in the Each One Teach One category on YouTube. So go over to the YouTube, the Awkward Intelligence YouTube, Awkward Intelligence Network. Find us over there on YouTube, and we'll have a channel on there, a playlist called Each One Teach One. And so coming soon, I'll put a little video together to kind of tell you the pitfalls and ideas I ran into, or that we're running into, dealing with streaming and, working with this new podcast setup and stuff like that. And, that way it'll help some of these other creators down the road if they run into some of these same issues. It's just interesting. It's like you always think, you see everything on these channels, and you realize, oh, it can't be that difficult. That guy doesn't look that smart. That's what you're thinking. But you don't know. He could have paid somebody to put it together. Could have had the money to do different things like that, and just have people who know what they're doing, or maybe they just know what they're doing. Some people just know what the fuck they're doing. I don't know. I just know enough to get in trouble. That's how much I know.
Hey, let's get it, bro.
So yeah, I was wondering why earlier the mic sounded a little boxy. That was sounding a little funny to me. I didn't realize it was because there's another hot mic in the room. So yeah, thanks for sticking with us with our audio issues. Look at this. See, that's what I'm saying. You got a new room, you get all this equipment, and instead of it making it easier, it just makes it easier for you to fuck it up. Because there's so many things you got to check on, because we have things set up in a way where I can call up a scene and it's already ready to go for the things we need to do. So I've created the shortcuts to get to us to certain things fast. But then when things change up, you don't realize that there's certain things you might have to do differently to make up for those things. And so, yeah, real time, baby. It's what happens. You have these issues. This is real time creator shit. I'm not here to cut this stuff out and make my podcast look all fucking fancy and different things like that. I'm going to have mess ups here. We're going to have some issues. Things are going to happen. And that's cool, because that just shows you that this is done by real people in a real scenario, So yeah. So help us out. Go buy a t-shirt and a hoodie. It's getting cold out there. Remember, folks? Check out ppeinmusic.com. You see it above the screen. Come on, stop.
Hey, let's get it, bro.
Let's go. So what else is going on out there? I'm trying to think of a couple of other things I wanted to chat about. I talked about the digital assets, what we started with, and then I ran it into some other stuff. Sometimes it just leads places, talked about the smoking gun, right, with history and different things like that, right? It's like, come on, if you don't realize history's fucked at this point, then you're just not meant to. It's not for you. You'll just figure it out in another lifetime. So yeah, but look, we're getting close to the end of the year. Remember back in March, we were like, it's March, it's almost going to be the end of the year, and then now we're here. It's almost December, folks. We're at the end of 2025. 2026 is going to be huge, because 2025 was great, and it was good for a lot of different things, and not everybody had a great year in the sense of it being exciting. But it's a great year for society as a collective. We've been building a lot this year. We've been doing a lot. We've been working on a lot of different things. You know what I want to give a plug to? Here's the thing. I'll do it live. I don't even have her TikTok. But my sister, something that I thought was really cool was, now that I've been on TikTok a little bit, because we've been playing around with streaming and stuff, right? I'm seeing that she, because she's got a master's in social work, right? Remember we talked about that? But she has a stream, or not a stream. She has I think she started a food pantry up in Washington State, right, where she's working at up in Seattle. And I thought that was pretty cool that she's kind of like had a few fundraising ideas on TikTok, and they've, she's made a few $100s to go out and get more food for their food pantry, and then, donations and all kinds of different stuff. And so I want to give her a shout out, but I want to get her, here we go. It's called at Desi in the Park, DESINTHEPARK, Desi in the Park. That's the TikTok. And so I thought that was pretty cool that she's already doing it. So that's what's funny sometimes is, there early on when we were starting all this stuff and things like that, she was one of the family members that was pushing back a little bit, like, why are you talking about all this stuff and why are you trying to push all these things on us? But what was wild was she was doing everything I was talking about. She just didn't want to hear about it. And so she was, she changed careers in the last couple of years. She got her master's in social work, and she wants to help people and stuff. And so now she started this food pantry thing on the side, and she's building that and stuff like that. And I think that's interesting, because she's, like I tell people, be the example, lead from the front. Be the example, and she's doing that in a lot of ways. And she's always kind of been that person. Even though very young, she was shy. She was very shy, and she was like, if you've seen her when she was younger, you probably would have thought she was an introvert, but now she's more of an extrovert, but that's because she learned how to use her power. She understands her her ideas, and she's able to push those into the world easier and better because she understands that she's grown into that person. And that's really cool. And so, I wanted to give her that shout out because I thought that was really cool, starting that food pantry. And I think that's it's a good inspiration for others to kind of start figuring out what they want to do with themselves and how to help others and stuff like that and how to do things, And another thing that we've been talking about, it's like last couple episodes, I've been telling everybody, if they have these food deals at these places, make sure you go out and help somebody if you can, if you have the means, help a few people if you can. So that's always cool. Definitely. So that's always, that's always something we promote here at Awkward Intelligence.
Hey, let's get it, bro.
Thanks for stopping by. So I don't know what else is going on out here. The PPE compound is coming together. Oh, there goes an ambulance. I hope everything works out for their greatest good. I think everybody will be fine. It'll all work out for everybody. That's something we got to think about too, right? Oh, I can tell you that story. That reminds me. See, so a few days ago, we're here working on the studio and doing some things, and what was it? It was over the weekend. We had some equipment we needed to move and get moved around and stuff, and so we had a few people come out and help us out. Get some stuff moved and some cabinets things and some, just shit we needed to get moved around and stuff like that, right? So when we were done, we had some computers that we wanted to donate. Well, the thought process was we had about 8 computers, older computers, desktops, and they had been sitting around in our storage for a while. So we thought maybe instead of just dumping them in the trash, we thought maybe we'd donate them, right? So I was going, I was like, I had to drop my son off at the house and swing by the house real quick. And then I was going to run over to this computer shop down the road that Mr. Prim knows about. And we were going to stop there and donate these computers. So I go drop my son off at the house. I'm taking kind of the normal route back around to where this computer store is. And as I'm pulling down one of these, I don't even know the name of the road, but I'm pulling down this road that I always go down. I'm pretty much driving at least once a day. It's one of those roads that's just in the neighborhood that you go down, right? And there's no stop signs there. There's nothing, for people to slow down or nothing going on, nothing like that. But all of a sudden, everyone stopped, and you just can't really see what's happening up front. There's a few cars, in the area. And then as I get a little closer, because I'm going, why is everybody stopped over here? This is weird. I kind of look to the right, and I see a car flipped upside down. And I'm like, oh, accident going down. Okay, that's why everybody stopped. And so it looks like it, was recent, but it already happened. And so, as cars are pulling through and everybody's trying to come through, there's a few people stopped and starting to help and stuff. And so I look over and I see, there's a few people out there. And so it's like I think there's like a woman on the phone. There's 2 women by the car, and then there's another guy like over there helping, right? And so I'm looking at that ratio, and I'm thinking, okay, if something's going on here, it would probably be good to have another male involved, just because like you never know what could happen. You might need that, So I'm just thinking, okay, that's my cue. I should probably check this out and make sure everybody's good. So I pull up real quick, pull out, I run up. I'm asking everybody if they need any help, if anybody, if I can help in any way. Does what's going on? They get one lady out. The driver, I think they kind of get her sitting up, and she's shook up, and she's got a black eye. She got popped with the freaking what they call them, the airbags and all that stuff. So she's sitting up, she's coherent, she's talking, and then there's another lady in the passengers, and the car's flipped upside down, and there's another lady in the passenger seat, and there's somebody has a door open, and they're trying to get to her, but she's not even sitting upside down in the seat like you would think. She's right side up. In the seat, but like sideways, almost like a little sideways. And so her leg is like stretched out into the dash, and you know what I mean? You can't really see it. You can hear her talking a little bit, but you can't really see her face or anything. She's just stuck in it. And so So at first, so one of the, so some of the people are like, hey, let's just get her out. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, don't just grab her out. I was like, you got to see where her injuries are, because if she's got any injuries, you don't want to just yank her out of there. You can make it worse. So a couple people start talking to her, and start trying to figure out what's going on. They start trying to move her a little bit. And then all of a sudden the police and everybody starts pulling up, and they start running up and they start taking over everything. And so everybody starts kind of backing up, the patrons and everybody there starts kind of backing off as the police and everybody starts showing up and start getting into their groove. And so a few of us kind of gather to the side, and we're just talking for a second. Everybody's kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe I just witnessed that. And, everybody's kind of having their moments and trying to just relax for a second and get their bearings back. And now that, the situation is under control, the police have it handled. And then, as we're chatting and I'm just talking to people, and then I'm telling them, I'm like, hey, I was like, that's great that, because when I pulled up, there was maybe 5 of us. By the time we're talking at the end, there's like 20 of us. There's all these people. And so I was like, hey, it's great. I was like, oh, it's great that everybody, stopped. And this is a good thing that, when somebody's in need, it's great that, people are willing to stop and at least, take a moment. Not everybody can do that. I get that. Everybody's got different things going on, but it was good to see that many people were willing to stop and at least see what's, is there anything they can do? Can we help? And things like that. And so I thought that was really cool. It's like humanity's healing, right?
Hey, let's get it, bro.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting. And I'm not, nobody there seemed like they were in, too desperate of of injuries or anything like that. So everybody seemed, for the most part, okay. But I don't know what happened. Within a couple minutes of that, I jumped in my car and said, they've got it handled. And we went about our business, and we tried to donate these computers to this computer shop. And the guy was like, nope, they're too old. So we turned around and took them to the recycling center and recycled them. So we think, right? These recycling centers, what do they really do with this stuff? We don't know. Once it's there, it's not ours anymore. So we don't know what happens to it. You never know. You never know. They're all just making money off our free shit. You know what I mean? That's how it goes. They act like, oh, we'll recycle it for you. It's free, because they know they're making money and you're just giving it to them. But, it's an easy way to get rid of things. It's for you, because the one I went to is for the county. And so you got to live in the county. You got to have a, Maryland ID and all that stuff like that, so that they can let you in. No, we can't just let anybody in there. So, but yeah, it's an interesting world out there. It's just, it's kind of like the idea of, it's kind of like the same oath that like doctors and them take. It's like, just do no harm. If you're just running around, having a good time and chilling and helping people, and it's like something that like something that Smarty said before, right? Smarty from Holotech and everything over there. He said, one of the quickest ways to get things that you want is to help others get things that they want. And so it's kind of that pay it forward thing. So it's always like, and that's why I tell people to live in abundance. It's like, if you have the means and things come up, just do. Like, I'm not, like when I go out places and do things, I don't worry about the money per se. I have the experiences I want to have. I try to do things that I like. I try to, and things like that. And I'm not really worried about, like nothing extravagant. I'm not going, let's just spend thousands of dollars, but I'm not worried if I got to spend a 15, 20 here or a 20, 30 there or whatever to do certain things. Maybe I wasn't expecting to do that. But if I'm here to have a good time, I'm willing to put that in and see where that gets us and go and have those adventures. And so it's kind of like, you're like, I'll just pay it. And it's energy exchange. I'm exchanging some currency for energy at that moment. And it's going to come back to you. Universe, it's a boomerang. The universe is going to kick it back to you, in different ways and in different ideas. And, it's like, look at this, right? Look at where we are now. I'm out here trying to build all. Matter of fact, think about it this way. If you're watching this episode right now, pause it right here and come back and go watch episode 1 and then come back. Watch like the first 20 minutes of episode 1 and then come back to right here and start again and see the evolution of day one compared to episode 154. Look at the way we've evolved. And it's not, and the thing is like, you know, we're evolving because we're doing things that we love. We're building this idea of podcasting and growing a network. It changed, you know, like we talked about, Awkward Intelligence changed from just a podcast to a network. And we started dropping so many different things. We started doing, you know, the Intox rants. We did the Each One Teach One. We do tribute videos. You know, we have the Hush. Remember that last week, the Hush Money video just dropped? We dropped a director's cut of Hush Money on the episode. You know, we dropped documentaries. We have the Stolen Identity. You know, JFK Jr. That we have that documentary dropping. That documentary on YouTube is doing great. You know, people love that video. They're still chatting about that video. I still every couple of days I look in there and check out the chat and see what they're chatting on and comment and say thanks for watching and talk to people and just have a quick conversation with people. And some people are asking questions and I'm you know, sending them to other YouTubers that are doing different stuff so they can find more information and be like, this is not the only information. Go seek more information at these places. You know, I'm not gatekeeping. I'm not trying to say I'm the only one with information. We've never been those people. You know, we're going to teach everybody as much as we know. We're going to give everybody the tools, and we're going to let you know exactly where you can find a lot of these things. That's what we do here. We try to give you the information so that you can go do the research, so you can have the thoughts, and you can go, wow, maybe what they're saying has some validity. Maybe what they're saying, there's something going on here. Maybe we should look into this deeper. You know, and sometimes it's just a marker. Sometimes it's, you know, when you see something, especially like, you know, in the news and different things, when those are markers. They're saying something to say something that you don't even understand yet. And so you look at it and you got to go, okay, maybe I'm supposed to look into this deeper. Who are the connections? Who are they tied to? What is this? Who are these people? What are their backgrounds? Remember, like earlier in the show, and we're talking about how some people have different names because they took their mother's maiden names, or they did different things because they're trying to hide. And then now they're making these backroom deals with people, and we're thinking they're just random people coming out of nowhere. You're just like, oh, it's this new company coming out of nowhere. They're coming in to just spend money with the government. And they're going to do contracts. And you realize, holy shit, they're just tied in with these same people. It's just somebody with a different name. Crazy, right? So those are markers. You got to look in. That's the whole point of looking into it, is so that they can say, oh, we're going to partner with these people and these people. And then you go look into those companies. You look at their stocks. You check out their this. You check out their that. Next thing you know, you're going to find something, because the idea is to mark them. They're being marked. That's the idea, so that you can check on them and find information and figure out why they're tied in and how they're tied in.
Hey, let's get it, bro.
That's, you know what I mean? That's the behind the scenes type things that are happening here, that we're, you know, that some people are not privy to, and that we're trying to bring that information out and say, look at these things deeper. It's not always what the headline says. It's not always what the first thing you hear is. There's always two sides of the story. There's always three sides of the story. You know, there's their story, there's the other side, and then there's the truth. And you got to find all that and put it together and come up with your own truth out of it and try to figure out what the real idea was, because everybody's going to tell their side. That's just how it works. We all know that, you know. So just keep working out there. Keep working and finding solutions and figuring things out and putting it together and building, you know. Like we said before, we're just a bunch of country boys living in the city. We forgot how to farm. We forgot how to grow things. They pushed it out of us in like 2 generations. Crazy, right? Couple of generations, we don't even know how to do shit no more. We're reliant on internet. We're reliant on our phones. We're reliant on, you know, the information and the GPS and this and that. We can't even get around anywhere no more. Everybody's got to check their GPS. Nobody wants to just drive there and figure it out. You know, sometimes I just want to test my brain. I just want to see what happens. Let's just figure it out. So what? We miss an exit here and there. You know, it's not, unless you're in a hurry, you know, no big deal. We'll figure it out. You know, sometimes you just want to get there, you know. But yeah, sometimes you just want to test, like what I'll do, like I said before, like I've talked about before, is what I'll do is I'll look at where it is, and if I know the area, I'll be like, okay, I know how to get there. But once I get to this area, I just need this last, couple miles to figure out that final point, But, think about it this way. What you used to do when you need directions. And I'm talking about before MapQuest. Are you that old? Are you that old before MapQuest? You remember what you used to do to find directions then? I don't even remember. How the fuck did we find anything? Did we just go blindly out there and hope we could find it? Did we do it by landmark? Somebody go, oh, it's over by Ingram Mall on the backside, and we just had to go figure it out? I don't remember. What was it? What did we do? So like think about it that way, right? We used to navigate this world without all these things. But now that we have these things, we think that that's the only way. But I knew in early 2000s, we talked about this before, early 2000s when those Garmin's came out, when you could put them on your dash and shit, I knew that was the end of it. I go, people are not going to learn directions anymore. They're just not. This is going to make them stupider. And it has in a lot of ways. It has. Because people have become too reliant on it. But it is what it is. We gotta. That's why you gotta learn how to unlearn and relearn, and change and do that. And figure out new ideas. It's, like I said, navigate your world. Prepared, not scared. So, different things like that. Am I boring you? Is this boring? No, I'm just kidding. If you've been here this long, I've got your attention. You're mine now. So yeah, no, I think I won't keep this one too long because it's just me. But we're so I'll start wrapping this thing up. We'll get another story in or two. We'll get in there, but we're not gonna push an hour and a half. Just me for an hour and a half never feels right. It just feels like too much unless it's a good conversation. Unless we find a good conversation. That's something that Mr. Prim he wants to do on TikToks, right? He's trying to go live every Friday. I don't know if he told y'all. He wants to go live every Friday around, I think it's 7:30 every Friday. He wants to go live on TikTok, and that's at the I think I threw it up on the screen last week. You might have to go check last week's episode. I'll throw it on the screen again. I'll get his TikTok, and that's what he wants to do is come up with interesting topics for people to come on a panel and just have conversations and talk and be respectful about, different conversations that you have. Like last week, we jumped in there last week, and a couple of the questions he had was like one of the big questions he had was something along the lines of, what's something that older people do that they try to push off as effort or something like that, something along those lines, where it's basically what he was trying to say was, what's something that older people do that they make it seem like effort when really it's an effortless situation, but they try to make it sound like it's, oh, I got all these things I got to do. It's like something weird like that. So it was but it was just to get people to invoke conversation. And that's what he's trying to do with his show. I think it's called Getting It In with Mr. Prim on Fridays. And so he's just going to bring up questions and ideas, and then based on who's in the panel, they'll be able to answer those questions and then, people, we can discuss it and discuss those ideas. And we don't know what it could be. It could be, could be relationship stuff. It could be, motivational things. It could be, it's whatever he comes up with. But it's something that he wants to do, and like I said, as we're starting to stream more and build more content out of the compound, that's why I want to talk to you, tell you about that. So that's another thing. Friday nights, if you're interested, go check that out. Wednesday nights we'll be starting to do the AwkwardIntel show live on TikTok. So if you're on TikTok and you want to check it out, go check that out. You'll get a raw edit basically of the show. That's what we're going to start putting together for TikTok, is give them the raw show. And then Fridays on YouTube and Spotify and all that stuff, podcasting, you'll get an edited show lightly edited, stuff where I throw stuff in and just try to, clarify things for people, but not edited to where it's like going to make me look like I say different shit or anything like that. Just edited to a point where it looks a little better for YouTube and different, in that type of, that type of idea. And so yeah, as and then like I said, you'll see as we move around and figure things out, you'll start to see more and more of the compound as we dance around here and do different lives and TikToks and different things from all over this place. And just like I said, we're gonna whore it out for content. Yeah, that's how we're gonna do it. So yeah, and something that Mr. Prim had mentioned to me the other day was he goes, man, it's crazy how you've manifested talking to the world. You kept telling us, I'm going to talk to the world. And you kept saying it. And he's like, and you've kind of manifested to a point where we're at a point where we're just all going to be talking to the world. And so, he just happened to mention that. And I was like, wow. I was like, I didn't see it that way in that moment, but he was seeing how it was just coming together. It's like, he said, you're about to just start talking to the world. We're all going to be talking to the world. And I was like, wow, it's interesting that we've gone, like I said, go watch episode 1 and come back. You'll see how far we've evolved, So yeah, it's like we said, it's an interesting ride, 154 episodes. And here we are, folks. And like I said, if they didn't want me to talk, and now they can't shut me up. That how it works? Not how it works. It's like everybody always talks about that. Their child when they're small, right? It's like you spend all this time teaching them how to talk, and then you spend the rest of your life telling them to shut up.
Hey, let's get it, bro.
But you're the one who taught them how to talk. Why'd you teach them how to talk then? So yeah, yeah. I don't know. Let's finish it off with some parenting tips. How about that? Let's do that. Let's talk about, let's see. Sometimes I look at some of my peers and people I know, and I see that they have, newer children, like, 7 and younger or whatever at this point. And I'm thinking, wow, like what would I do if I could do it over? You know what I mean? Like if I had that chance to redo something like that. And yeah, I think it would be interesting, especially because, it's like if we had the money to do it right, that's where I would want to be. I would want to be in a financially situated situation where I could do it right, and I wouldn't have to sacrifice all my different things in order to try and facilitate a great relationship with that child. The same way that I've done with my kids now is I had to sacrifice my time and energy for work and for, different things that were happening in my life and stuff like that, to where I did emotionally and, neglect them in ways because I was doing so many other things in so many other ways. I didn't know that I was doing that. I thought, hey, you're here. I'm feeding you. You got clothes on your back. You're fine. Not knowing that the emotional connection was something that I really needed to work on and facilitate at a certain time. And, with all the, with my wife being sick and them growing up through that, being silent about a lot of it and not really telling them what was going on. And they really only saw the chaos when it went down, when it was time to go to the hospital and stuff like that. So they were confused, and I just didn't think about that for them. I just thought the less they knew, the less they would understand. But what it was the less they knew, the less they understood, and the more it hurt them. And I just didn't understand that, And so that can teach somebody out there, if you're in a scenario like that and you have some of them younger kids, like you gotta look at that different, and you gotta see that situation and go, okay, maybe they're young, maybe they don't understand everything, but I should be talking to them. I should be connecting with them. I should be trying to figure out how they feel and understand what's going on with them, because in the end, that's going to matter more than not telling them anything in the first place. And I learned that the hard way, so it's something I can pass along to others out there, that, what it really comes down to is just be truthful with everything. The more you're truthful with things with your family members and your people and your kids and things like that, the less there is to worry about, the less there is to wonder, the less there is to do all this craziness and thoughts in their minds and what ifs and who coulds and whatever, right? It's put it all on the table, talk about it, have a conversation, walk away from it, come back, hash it out, whatever it takes. And that's a better connection and idea than just hoping they understand and, hoping it all just works out, where you're actually taking an active role and trying to make sure that you're facilitating a clear idea so that nobody's confused. And if they are, they can ask the questions and not feel like they're going to be, it's what is the word? Knowing that, they're not going to be ridiculed for having questions. It's like everybody's got questions. Everybody's got, there's nothing wrong. It's like we're teaching them everything. The more and more that I didn't want to become like my parents, I became like them in a lot of ways because I didn't know any better. Nobody taught me anything different. I didn't know anything different. I only knew what they taught me. And so when I got into certain scenarios, I just repeated that behavior. And not even realizing I was doing it until, you look back and you go, what? And so we just got to be better overall. And, talking to yourself, having those conversations with yourself first and putting things into perspective, and that'll help you. That'll help you put it together. So, that's why I'm saying, like, when you got them young ones, man, take care of that relationship. That's the biggest thing. It's just take care of the relationship. All that other shit will fall in place. Maybe they don't have the best of things. Maybe they don't have all the things they ever wanted. But if they have that emotional connection with you, that's all they're ever going to need. That's what I learned, That's what they're really looking for. They're just looking for you to lead, and be a leader in those scenarios. And, So yeah, with that, I think we'll just wrap this thing up. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Oh shit. Awkward Intelligence. I'm Intox. BDot's not here again. We'll have him back next week. We'll catch you then.
Awkward Intelligence. This is Awkward Intelligence.